Imagine this. A really busy street corner, downtown Manhattan. You've got detectives kind of blending into the crowd, but they're laser focused on this one guy. He's just eating pizza, totally unaware. But see, they don't care about his lunch. They're waiting for him to throw something away, specifically the pizza crust.
Yeah, that crust. It sounds almost, well, mundane, doesn't it? But it turns out to be this incredibly crucial piece. The key, really, to unlocking a mystery that went on for, what, over a decade?
Exactly. That's what we're diving into today. The Gilgo Beach Murders, and how this everyday object, this pizza crust, played such a massive role in cracking one of New York's most horrifying cases.
It's a pretty stark example of how far forensics has come. Something you wouldn't even think twice about discarding suddenly holds the answer.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack the whole thing, the really tangled timeline, the poor victims whose stories need to be told, all the twists and turns in the investigation over the years.
And crucially, the science. The breakthroughs that finally brought some answers, some measure of closure, maybe, to these grieving families.
The stakes were incredibly high. I mean, police are trying to link this man to the murders of at least 4 women. Vicious crimes. And he almost got away with it.
Almost. If it wasn't for, as you said, that pizza crust, it really highlights the patience involved, doesn't it? Not just rushing in, but strategic waiting and collection.
Yeah, absolutely. So building on that, the story really kicks off, I guess, between 2007 and 2010. 4 women just disappear, vanish, across New York.
Right, and for years, investigators felt these cases had to be connected, but they were hitting dead ends. No solid leads, just missing persons reports piling up.
It must have been incredibly frustrating, different places, different times.
Until December 2010. That's when the tragic discovery happened. Their bodies were found in this remote beach town on Long Island, Gilgo Beach, and suddenly the cases had a name.
The Gilgo Murders. And the women became known as the Gilgo Four.
And once they were identified, investigators started seeing a pattern, a very disturbing one.
What was that pattern?
Well, they were all young, in their 20s, petite build, and significantly, they were all offering services online through Craigslist.
And this was during that big economic recession, right, which likely pushed people into a really difficult situation.
Exactly. Created this pool of vulnerable individuals. And that profile, young women, similar build, using Craigslist, it screamed serial killer.
It's important we remember who these women were, though, not just statistics.
Absolutely. There was Maureen Brainard-Barnes. She was 25, a mother of 2 from Connecticut, facing eviction, turned to adult work. Last seen July 7th, 2007, outside a Super 8 motel in Manhattan.
So sad. Then Melissa Barthelemy, 24, originally from Erie County, living up in the Bronx. She went missing July 12th, 2009, told a friend she was going to meet a man.
And Megan Waterman, 22 years old, from Maine. She had a little girl, Lily, just 3 years old. Megan was last seen leaving a Holiday Inn Express on Long Island early morning, June 6, 2010, meeting a client.
Her poor mother said she called every day, and then the calls just stopped.
Heartbreaking. And finally, Amber Costello. From West Babylon, right there in New York, she'd battled addiction, was also involved in adult work. Last seen September 2010.
And wasn't there something specific about her last client? A description?
Yes, a friend of hers, David Schaller, saw the client. He described this guy as huge, maybe 6'4", big oval glasses, driving a green Chevy Avalanche. Schaller actually said he looked like an ogre. Very vivid, unsettling description.
Wow. And investigators also noticed something else, didn't they? Something about the timing.
Yeah, that's right. The time between the attacks, the killer's supposed cool-down period, it was getting shorter, faster and faster.
Which suggests what? He was becoming more compulsive, more brazen.
It often indicates an accelerating compulsion, yeah? Maybe less planning, becoming bolder, which, ironically, can sometimes lead to mistakes. A crucial point for investigators.
Okay, so the search that eventually uncovered the Gilgo Four, it didn't actually start with him, did it? It started with someone else.
That's right. It began with a really harrowing 911 call. May 1st, 2010, about 4:50 in the morning. A 24-year-old woman named Shanann Gilbert, also an adult worker.
What did she say?
She sounded absolutely hysterical, panting, screaming, said they were trying to kill her from inside a house in Oak Beach near Gilgo. Then she vanished. Her disappearance sparked this massive search.
And that search led to?
It led to Officer John Malia and his cadaver dog, Blue. December 11th, 2010. Searching for Shanann, they found this burlap sack under the snow. Inside, a body, bound.
Oh, God. And that was?
That was Melissa Barthelemy, the first of the Gilgo Four to be found. It just blew the lid off everything.
And then they found the others nearby.
Very close, within 500 feet. Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Waterman, Amber Costello, all bound with leather belts and all wrapped in this very specific kind of hunting burlap.
Hunting burlap. That seems specific.
Very. But Gilgo Beach. It wasn't finished giving up its secrets. The horror didn't stop with the Gilgo Four.
More victims.
Yes. By April 2011, searching along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo, they found more human remains. Jessica Taylor, missing since 2003. Tatiana Dykes. Valerie Mack.
It just kept getting worse.
And then 2 more women, Tanya Jackson and Karen Vergata, found just a few hundred feet apart. And a really grim discovery there. DNA showed Tanya and Tatiana were mother and daughter. Karen Vergata was another adult worker missing since way back in 1996.
So this went back decades, potentially.
It seemed that way. They even found remains of an unidentified Asian male, dressed in female clothing, died from blunt force trauma.
Asian Doe, they called him.
And Shanann Gilbert, the woman whose call started the search.
Her body was finally found, 19 months later, in a marsh nearby. Officially, the cause of death was listed as undetermined, maybe drowning. But her mother, Mary Gilbert, never believed that.
She thought it was foul play.
She did. And a later autopsy in 2016 actually suggested Shanann's death was intentional. So, Gilgo Beach became this awful, sprawling graveyard.
It's a place of terror. The scale is what's so shocking. Not just one cluster, but victim after victim, year after year. It fundamentally changed how people saw that area.
So with all these bodies, the police and the FBI finally teamed up, right? Focused initially on the Gilgo Four.
Yes, a joint task force. And a really crucial break came from analyzing phone records. They found this unknown number traced back to the Madison Square Garden area.
And this number was used, how?
To call the victims' families after the women had disappeared.
No way. What did the caller say?
Horrible stuff. Derogatory things about the victims, their work, and taunting the families, claiming they, whoever they were, had killed the women.
That's a level of cruelty that's hard to fathom, directly tormenting the families?
It points to a very specific type of perpetrator. Cruel, calculating, needing that control, that psychological torture. It's a signature you see sometimes.
Then came the science, the golden ticket, as you called it, DNA.
Exactly. They found male hair strands on several victims, specifically on Megan Waterman's body. Now, initially, this DNA didn't match anyone in the CODIS database, the national system.
But it was something concrete, a lead.
Huge lead, because later, forensic work managed to link that same hair DNA profile.
To another case.
Yes, to DNA found on Sandra Castilla, a woman missing since 1993. Her remains were found 60 miles away.
Wow. So 1993, this connects the Gilgo cases to a much older crime.
Absolute rock-solid genetic proof. This wasn't just the Gilgo Four anymore. This was potentially a serial predator operating for decades. A massive leap in the investigation.
And going back to Megan Waterman for a second, her story is just devastating.
It really is. She was apparently pushed into adult work by this abusive boyfriend, Akeem, who acted as her manager. Just trying to make money for her little girl, Lily.
He was arrested later, right?
Yeah.
But on unrelated charges.
Yeah, drug charges.
Yep.
But it just underscores the vulnerability. Megan wanted a better life for her daughter, and she tragically crossed paths with this killer.
It's important to remember these weren't just victims. They were people trying to survive, often in really tough circumstances.
Absolutely. Their individual stories get lost sometimes in the big picture of a serial case, but they're vital. They remind you of the human cost.
Okay, so now they have this DNA profile linked across decades, and they revisit that description from Amber Costello's friend.
Right, the ogre description. Big guy, 6'4", oval glasses, driving a dark green first-generation Chevy Avalanche.
And that description leads them where?
It points them towards Midtown Manhattan, and that's where the name Rex Heuermann surfaces.
Who was he?
He was, on paper, a successful architect. Ran his own firm, RH Consultants and Associates, since 1987, lived out in Massapequa Park on Long Island.
And the phone calls, the ones traced to Madison Square Garden.
They originated from areas near his home and his Manhattan office. That geographical proximity was a huge red flag.
And the description, did it match?
It matched perfectly. He drove that specific dark green first-gen Chevy Avalanche, though conveniently it turned out to be down in South Carolina when police started closing in.
Oh, convenient.
He's over 6 feet tall. Burly build, wore large oval-shaped glasses. Every single detail lined up with what David Schaller had described.
So outwardly, he's just this normal guy, a family man.
Yeah, appeared to be. In his 50s, lived with his wife, Asa, and their 2 kids. It's that classic deceptive facade, isn't it? How someone can live such a compartmentalized life normal on the surface.
But hiding unimaginable darkness underneath makes you wonder what signs, if any, people miss.
It really does. And another detail popped for investigators. Rex liked hunting.
The burlap sacks.
Exactly. The victims were found wrapped in that specific type of hunting burlap, bound with leather belts. It felt like another piece fitting into place.
Which brings us back to the pizza.
It does. Police had all this circumstantial evidence piling up, but they needed his DNA definitively. So they started tailing him in Manhattan.
Just waiting for an opportunity.
Patiently waiting. Until one day, near his office, he tosses a pizza box into a public trash can. Detectives moved in, grabbed the box, sent it straight to the lab.
And the results.
An irrefutable match. The DNA from that discarded pizza crust. It matched the male hair DNA found on Megan Waterman back in 2010 and on Sandra Castilla from 1993.
That's it. The golden ticket. They had their guy.
It's incredible, isn't it? How forensic science can use something so seemingly trivial, discarded DNA, to bridge decades and point directly to a suspect. A real paradigm shift in solving cold cases.
As they dug deeper into Heuermann, what else came out? Did people who knew him suspect anything?
Well, some of his employees at his firm, RH Consultants, apparently had an inkling he was kind of weird.
You're true.
They described him as being interested in hunting weak, defenseless prey, and sometimes borderline stalkerish, chilling descriptions in hindsight.
Wow. Any specific examples?
There's this one really disturbing anecdote. Apparently on a company cruise, he slipped a note under a female employee's cabin door. It just read, "You know I can find you anywhere."
That's terrifying. Pure intimidation and control.
Definitely goes way beyond just being weird. It points to a predatory mindset.
And the avalanche. The truck.
They eventually located that specific Chevy Avalanche at a property Rex owned down in Chester, South Carolina.
So the net is closing. When was he actually arrested?
July 13th, 2023. He was arrested and initially charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, suggesting premeditation, and 3 counts of second-degree murder for Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello.
But the charges didn't stop there, right? They kept expanding.
No, they didn't. In January 2024, he was charged with Maureen Brainard-Barnes' murder. Then, June 6th, 2024, he was arraigned, formally charged in court for the murders of Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castilla.
And wasn't there one more recently?
Yes, in December 2024, he was indicted, meaning formally accused by grand jury for the murder of Valerie Mack as well.
So that's 7 women he's currently charged with murdering. The media started calling him the Long Island serial killer.
That's the name that stuck. And his suspected method, his MO, seemed chillingly consistent based on the evidence.
Which was?
Using Craigslist to find women fitting his apparent criteria, petite, young adults, luring them to hotels, motels, maybe houses, killing them, possibly with his bare hands or a heavy object while they were bound, then wrapping them in that hunting burlap and disposing of the bodies near Gilgo Beach.
Then there was another twist, wasn't there? Involving his family's DNA.
Yes, a really complex one. They found longer hair strands on the leather belts used to bind some victims, and DNA testing matched those hairs too. Rex's wife, Asa, and his daughter, Victoria.
Wait, so his wife and daughter's DNA was on the victims. Did that mean they were involved?
That was the immediate question, obviously. Police looked into Asa, but apparently she seemed genuinely shocked, clueless, and alarmed about her husband's secret life. They ruled her out as an accomplice.
So how did their DNA get there?
The prevailing theory became something called domestic transfer. Basically, hairs from his wife and daughter could have transferred onto his clothes at home, and then from his clothes onto the victims during the crime or disposal. Especially since records showed the family was often out of state on vacation when the murders occurred.
Okay, that makes forensic sense, I suppose, but...
But given how calculating he seemed, some people wondered, could he have planted their DNA? Deliberately, to confuse investigators, maybe create a red herring.
There's no proof of that, though.
No, absolutely no evidence. It's just speculation, but it speaks to the perception of his manipulative nature. We also know police recovered mirror selfies he apparently used on Craigslist to solicit these women, again showing a methodical approach.
So bringing us up to date, as of late 2024, Rex Heuermann stands charged with murdering 7 women. Amber, Megan, Melissa, Maureen, Sandra, Jessica, and Valerie.
Correct. He's currently being held in Riverhead Correctional Facility awaiting trial. He's pleaded not guilty to everything.
And the legal process, is it straightforward?
Far from it. His defense lawyers tried to get the 7 charges split into 5 separate trials, but that request was denied. They're also trying to block the DNA evidence.
On what grounds?
They're arguing that testing methods used were novel. meaning maybe not fully established or accepted yet in New York courts. These kinds of challenges over cutting-edge forensic science are becoming more common. It's going to be a complex legal battle.
Absolutely. But amidst all the legal and scientific details, what always hits me is the victims. These women, whatever their circumstances, they were loved. They had families.
They absolutely did. They were daughters, mothers, sisters, friends, adored and cared for, as their families have said. Their lives mattered immensely, and what happened to them was monstrous.
You mentioned Megan Waterman's mother earlier, Lorraine. Her story.
It's incredibly poignant. She fought her own battles with addiction, got clean, and dedicated herself to raising Megan's daughter, Lily. Lily's an esthetician now. But Lorraine, she sadly passed away from cancer in 2022.
So she never saw him caught.
No. She never got that satisfaction, that closure of seeing her daughter's alleged killer brought to justice. It's just another layer of tragedy. And her story represents so many families affected by this state's. Amber's, Melissa's, Maureen's, Sandra's, Jessica's, Valerie's, Karen's, Tanya's, Tatiana's, Shanann's. They all miss them terribly and are still hoping for full justice.
And the really chilling thought is, we still don't know, do we? We don't know if there are more victims out there. How many people Rex Heuermann might have targeted over the years?
That remains a deeply unsettling, unanswered question. The full scope of his alleged actions might still be unknown.
So this deep dive, it's been quite a journey. From a discarded pizza crust becoming this linchpin, to decades of cold cases being connected, the science, the police work, and finally an arrest.
It truly highlights the power of persistence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Tenacious detective work combined with those leaks in forensic science.
And the human stories behind it all. When you hear all this, what's the main thing that resonates with you?
For me, it's that chilling reality of the dual life. How someone can appear so ordinary, successful even, an architect living in the suburbs, yet potentially harbor such profound darkness. It really forces you to think about the hidden complexities that might exist right within our communities. And it speaks volumes about vigilance, about the incredibly long and difficult pursuit of justice, and maybe most importantly, about the unbelievable resilience of these victims' families. They've endured so much, yet they continue to seek answers and keep the memories of their loved ones alive.